And thank you for joining us today at JALT International 2021. Please welcome Dr. Lindy Ledohowski, and you may begin.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And yes, a reminder that I've hit record on the session, so feel free to turn off your screen if you don't want to, or your video if you don't want to inadvertently be part of this recording. And you can always click on the little dots beside your name if you want to change your name as well to further anonymize it. So I hope that you have been enjoying JALT 2021, new perspectives, reflections and new perspectives. So far, I'm happy to be here this Sunday morning. I will screen share and start this morning's presentation, which is teaching English language writing using smart templating technology. As Karen mentioned, I'm Dr. Lindy Ledohowski. I have a PhD in English. I used to be a high school English teacher and then an English professor. And then after that, I co-founded and developed the EssayJack software, which in essence is a digital writing template software for academic writing in English. And we will talk about that today. So I will start sharing my screen so that we can begin the more formal part of today's discussion. All right, so hopefully you are now seeing my entire screen, and we have a reminder of the title of the presentation as well as the date so that we can all be sure that we are in the right place at the right time. I will turn this next slide over to our fantastic partners, Mangosteams, on the ground in Japan, and both Julian and Ayuna from Mangosteams are here today. So they'll also be monitoring the chat if you have some technical questions about using the EssayJack software that we'll discuss throughout the presentation. Right now, I will mute myself for a moment so that Ayuna can tell you a little bit more specifically about Mangosteams and how they can support your learning needs in the classroom in Japan.
Thank you, Lindy. Just to give me just 1 minute quickly. So hi everyone. Thank you very much for your interest and attendance at teaching English language running using smart template technology. I'm Ayuna from Mangosteams. Mangosteams provides solutions in the educational challenges of today's environment. We supply innovative and effective digital materials in the areas of science, technology, engineering, English, math, and social studies for all ages. We represent EssayJack in Japan. So please allow me to introduce today's presenter, Dr. Lindy Ledohowski from EssayJack. Please enjoy her presentation. And if you have any questions, please put in the chat anytime. So in addition, if you're interested in free trial, please fill the form where the link will be posted in the chat. So we'll get back to you within a week. So over to you, Lindy.
Thank you so much, Ayuna. And as Ayuna mentioned, she will put direct links in anything that you might need. So as we talk about integrating smart digital templating into an integrated English for academic purposes writing context using the EssayJack software. If there's something that rings true to you, if there's something that's interesting, then by all means, Mangosteams can get you and your students set up. And so this little blurb here in front of you is merely just copied and pasted from the schedule, again, to reinforce that we're in the right place. And again, I want to call out some of the things that are important here to today's presentation. So teaching English language writing online can be challenging. Interactive components such as modeling, scaffolding, and providing one-on-one support are not easy. Oh, hang on one second. I'm just seeing that I somehow don't have my chat off, and my sister is going to be sending me messages all throughout asking me how my weekend is going, and that is going to distract me. Something horrible. So let's see how I can hopefully get that set up. My new computer I've never had chats coming through on my new computer before, so apparently I don't know how to turn that off. So hopefully that will be off. Anyway, getting back to the presentation, we'll workshop and review some of the challenges to English language teaching, and we'll talk about using the EssayJack software. So here we go. One of the things that we're going to talk about today in digital writing templates is this idea of genre-based teaching when it comes to writing. And so this is a really great quote. It seems that exploring the effectiveness of genre-based approaches in teaching different aspects of academic English in generic and subject-specific contexts has become one of the leading research themes within the field, particularly as regards to teaching academic writing. So I call that out here simply to highlight that built into the pedagogy underpinning the EssayJack software is this idea of teaching in context and teaching in a genre-based way. So what I mean by that is that we can teach components of writing in isolation, and that is certainly one approach. The approach that seems to be backed up by a lot of the research into successful writing composition pedagogy is to teach things in context in their genre. So as we go into the software, I'll kind of pull that out and highlight this idea of genre-based. But as I highlight it, I figured it is important to sort of showcase that I'm not just highlighting it because it's sort of neat and interesting, but that it does in fact come from the research and the scholarship. And again, another important aspect that underpins the pedagogy behind the EssayJack software is scaffolding. And so scaffolding from an educational perspective, as you well know, is of course one of the sort of crucial components to a learning process. And so typically we think of scaffolding as that the teacher is providing that scaffolding, which helps the students to build up to ever greater levels of academic success. And so one of the challenges, particularly in a context that may be post-pandemic, that may be hybrid learning, is where we now find ourselves with trying to provide that scaffolding digitally. So instead of that back and forth in a classroom all the time, sometimes we're now relying on combinations of digital tools, plus in person, plus as we are today with Zoom and video conferencing. So how do we meaningfully build up that scaffolding in a writing context? And then the third piece of the research that's kind of underpinning the EssayJack technology that we'll talk about today. And this is from a study that had a group of students using digital writing templates before, some used it before their writing, and then they had a control group that didn't. And of course, the students who used the digital writing templates improved their writing outcomes. And so we always like it when there's a study that is done that then demonstrates the efficacy of the research at play. And so to summarize all of that, so we've got genre-based and we've got the modeling and we've got this idea of being able to use templates. So what does this mean in terms of our own practice? Teaching writing with ready to use or customizable templates focus on genre-specific training. So again, as I mentioned, it gets that idea of the genre specificity. Templates build in the scaffolding, so that idea of sort of building in the success along the way. And again, they establish modeling of what good writing looks like. And this is particularly in an English for academic purposes context, or students who are English language learners. Not only are they learning the language, they're also learning the particular conventions of writing in English. And these conventions of English writing are not even always all that transparent to native speakers. It takes an explicit articulation to make clear what these expectations are for academic writing. So now I'll pause a moment and we'll jump into a bit of a demo and a workshop and a kind of hands-on look at the EssayJack software and some of these ideas of, okay, so what are we talking about with this idea of genre-based templates and scaffolding? Before I do that, are there any questions about anything that I've mentioned so far. If so, by all means, put them in the chat, or now's you have an opportunity to hop in and ask those questions before I jump into the sort of workshop hands-on part of the demo. All right, hearing nothing, I am good to keep going. So this is the EssayJack dashboard, and there are a number of different things that EssayJack can do for you and your students. You've got options on the left, the essay drafts, tests, templates, reviews, resources, and courses. That's your typical kind of navigation that you will find on many, not just education technologies that support your teaching, but it's kind of a standard UX heuristic when it comes to technologies, broadly speaking. Within the EssayJack framework, there are student roles and educator roles. And so everything that a student can do, an educator can do, and then there are a few additional features and functions that only an educator can do and a student cannot. So as we go through, I'll sort of flag out which hat I'm wearing as I show a couple of the different ways in which students and educators can use EssayJack. And so for now, I will put on my student hat and I will be approaching this as if I'm a student in one of your classes, and perhaps there is an assignment that you've given to me, an English language assignment, and I've been asked to perform this English language assignment in the class. And so this gets me to a couple of different use cases. This can be something that is done in class. So an instructor can have this on the smartboard. Students can have their individual one-to-one devices if that's the case. And you can, or whether this is a hybrid Zoom class, you can sort of lead students through the software, and the assignment can be something that is worked on in tandem with the students. It can also be homework. So it may be something where I, as the instructor, have said to my students, okay, so tonight I want you to work on this small assignment and I want you to use EssayJack to do it. And then tomorrow we'll go through it all together, either in class or again, whether that's going to be done digitally. But there are these different models. So as a student, whether I'm doing this in class with everybody else or whether I'm at home on my own, I'm going to go in and create an essay draft. And so because we're focusing again on this idea of genre specificity, within EssayJack, we call everything an essay, whether it is an essay or not. So it may be these genres have a variety of different names. So there's the standard academic essay, a persuasive speech, a book review, a 5-paragraph essay, an advantages, disadvantages, a narrative essay, a TED Talk, compare, contrast. So all of those are genres. They are templates created for those specific genres, and they're off the shelf from EssayJack. Then there are a number that can be created as assignments by you for your students, by your colleagues, or anything else that you want to customize. But again, I'll keep my student hat on. I'm a student. I've been told by my instructor to go and work on a 5-paragraph essay for my homework. Perhaps my assignment is just to get started on this. I'm supposed to go through the introduction, whatever, but I'm working on a 5-paragraph essay. And my teacher has told me that the question is to say something about clothing in ancient Rome. So clothing in ancient Rome essay. Okay, so I have to write about clothing in ancient Rome. What I see now before me is the scaffolding. This is the template that we're talking about when I keep saying digital writing template and genre-based writing. This is it right here in the middle. So in the middle, we've got these text boxes, these small chunks that break the essay down into its component parts. So as a student, I'm not super overwhelmed when I see this. I'm not sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I have 500 words to write and I don't even know where to begin. I can begin with these small chunks. As well, in terms of the genre, I see my essay in miniature over on the left. So I've got an introductory paragraph, which is broken down into my main idea, some details, my argument. It then moves into the body section, or just before the body section, the 3 ideas that are going to support my argument. And then I get to the body section, which has those 3 ideas. And each of those ideas are broken down into their smaller component parts: the topic sentence, the buildup, evidence, explanation, a concluding sentence. and my conclusion. So I can see this essay in miniature with its introduction, its body, and its conclusion. As a student, I'm already feeling more confident as I approach this homework task. So I'm going to have to write on ancient Rome, 500 words. Over on the right-hand side, I've got some tips here. So what is the question asking me? What should I write? Can I restate the question in a sentence? Be clear in one sentence about your topic. So all of these ways to get me thinking as a student about how I'm going to tackle this clothing in ancient Rome. So this essay is about clothing in ancient Rome. So I'm already getting started on this. Next, some details. Tell your reader some context or details to show that you understand the question. So one thing to know before going on is that men and women wore different styles of clothing in ancient Rome. So as I'm moving along, I'm already starting to feel confident simply by answering the questions that the template is asking of me, and using this drop-down menu with sentence stems or sentence starters. As a student, I'm now being guided through the generic expectations of the 5-paragraph essay. So instead of just thinking, oh, well, I've got 500 words to write, and those 500 words need to somehow have paragraphs, but the structure of what that looks like is beyond me, or I'm unfamiliar with it, or I'm sort of grappling with it, I now have this digital template that walks me through everything. I argue that men and women should not have to wear different clothes in ancient Rome. Right, so I'm going to argue that it's a terrible idea, and both men and women should run around wearing togas, whatever it is that I'm going to argue about this. And as I go on, I can see already that my essay is starting to be compiled simply by filling out these small chunks, these small text boxes, by answering those questions. And so I have a version of the essay that's a little bit more fleshed out so that you don't have to watch me write an entire essay, but we've got a clothing in ancient Rome essay that's a little bit more filled out, simply so that you can see, again, at each time when I fill any section out, I can always orient myself. On the right-hand side, if I want to see it in full view, I can see it in full view. EssayJack does work with Grammarly, so if students have their Grammarly account loaded into their Chrome browser or however they use it, it will work to correct their basic grammar, punctuation, spelling within the text boxes as well with ease. So this, for instance, is how we would see a simple 5-paragraph essay template working to walk students through. And now what I want to show you as well is an alternative. So a different kind of template, a different way of using this in the classroom. So for instance, if I decide that I want to create something that's a little bit more customized as an educator, actually, I'll go through to my courses. As an educator, I can create custom templates. So perhaps I don't want to use that standard 5-paragraph essay template. I want to go and I want to create my own assignment that is built on that 5-paragraph essay, but I want to customize it. So I might want to say, essay on ancient Rome, customized. And maybe I don't want my students writing 500 words. I want them writing 300 words. So now I, as the instructor, so I've taken off my student hat and I've put on my instructor's hat so that I have the ability to customize things entirely. So I may go through and I might turn off various sections. I may cancel out things entirely. Perhaps I might even start with opening sentence, and maybe I'll just have the opening sentence visible for students, for instance, and I've turned off everything else and I don't want them to see anything further. So I have the ability as the instructor to entirely customize this. And what I want to show you further is if I choose to customize in such a way that I localize things. So for instance, if I may well be teaching a writing assignment in English, but I can give those tips and prompts in their native language. And now you'll have to excuse me, because this won't be the most polished Japanese that you see here on the side. You will see the Google Translate version of Japanese offered as the sample, merely so that I can give you a sense of what's possible. So it may be imperfect, but possible. And so what we're seeing here is for students, we can say, okay, so this is your introduction, but then we can reinforce that by allowing them to context switch between their native language and English, if that is the language that they're learning. And so within English language teaching pedagogy, there's kind of two schools of thought. I mean, there are many schools of thought, but there are two as it pertains to this particular concept. And those two schools of thought are, on the one hand, some teachers may want to teach English in an entirely immersed context. So they will not want their students to see anything in their native language at all when they are writing in English. They want them to solely get the prompts and the guidance and tips and everything in English. The other kind of school of thought says, no, so they may well be writing in English, but some of their thinking is still informed by their native language. And so as part of that scaffolding, we want to give that scaffolding in their mother tongue, but the expectation is that they're writing in English. And so EssayJack allows for both. It's entirely up to you, depending on which school of thought is the one that appeals to your teaching practice. And that's going to be dictated largely by the level of competence of your students in terms of their linguistic abilities. And so for very strong students, you may say, yeah, let's just do this entirely immersive English language experience, and my students are capable of operating in that. And if you have students who need the supports where they're going to want to see some of these prompts and have that reassurance that they're getting it as well in their native language, you can do that as well. You have that ability to customize things. And so again, I can go through, I can customize those sentence starters. So I'll do a preview here so we would see what a student sees in this. So a student will see this particular custom template that is just focusing on teaching them how to write an introduction. And the introduction has the opening sentence, has their sentence starters, moves on to details. There's a little video. So this particular localized assignment is to have them writing about what they did on their weekend. And so I want them to first tell me, what did you do on your weekend? And then the second section, I want them to sort of name the assignment or the activity that they did on their weekend. And then the third component of their introduction is some sort of reflection. So what did you feel about your weekend? So this kind of introduction would be a very simple, this past weekend, we went to the beach. Then the details would be at the beach, we went swimming, we played Frisbee, we played beach volleyball. My reflection, I really enjoyed going to the beach. It was a lot of fun with my family, something very simple like that. And so the tips and the prompts are guiding the students through so that they then know, okay, what's expected of me in each of these sentences as I create this sort of simple introductory paragraph. And then what I may choose to do at that point is I may then turn on an additional section and say, now add another sentence. And let's say I customize that for whatever it is that I want to customize. And I can turn that on and the students will see it in real time. So I can turn on and off the various sections. And so long as the students have that particular assignment open, they will see those sections being turned on in real time. So I'll turn that back off simply because it's incomplete, but we call that progressive templating. And so if I'll go back to my student account on this. So as a student, I have an essay that I started on that template. So as a student, I can see those sections. And now if I go back to my instructor and I turn off those sections and say, I'm just going to do a class with my students where I'm going to start with, okay, for this assignment, I want you to write about your weekend. For your opening sentence, the most important thing that you're going to say is, what did you do on the weekend? You want to get your verb tenses right. You want to get the details right. It's one sentence on your weekend. So now, okay, class, take 5 minutes and write your one sentence. And so as a student, I then will see my, my interface just has that one section. So I will say, so this essay is about what I did on the weekend. I went to the beach. Great. So I've given my students their 5 minutes. They've written that. And then what I may then do as the educator, say, okay, everybody's had your 5 minutes. Everybody's written your first sentence. Now we turn on the second section. And I say, okay, now we're going to talk a little bit more detail. So your first sentence says what you did. Now list some activities in sentence format about what you did at the weekend. So then as a student, I'm sitting in that class, I'm thinking, okay, great. I went to the beach on the weekend. Great. And now this second section is open for me. So now I can say, okay, so, you know, this weekend, you know, I went to, or as I say, what did I do on the weekend? This weekend, I went to the, what did I say to do? I said I went to the beach. All right, so I went to the beach. At the beach, we played in the water. Okay, fantastic. So now as the teacher, I've said, okay, so you've got your first sentence, your second sentence. Now I can turn on the third section and I can say, okay, now we're going to do an activity where you're going to talk about your feelings. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Was, you know, was the beach terrible? Was it fun? Did you? And so then my students will, in real time, they'll see that update where that new section has then been added. So this essay is about what I did on the weekend. I went to the beach. At the beach, we played in the water. And now I have this new section that's been added for me as a student asking me about my reflections. So I might say, you know, what did I say? Are you happy or sad that the weekend happened? Okay, so I'll, you know, I really liked the beach. I was sad when the weekend was over. So now I've got 3 sentences that I've written based on the kind of prompts in the assignment. And so that's, for instance, a way in which we can use progressive templating in either face-to-face, so that can be done with a, as I say, with a smartboard. This is something that can be done. You can spend a first class on one section and then turn the next section on afterwards. You can do it all at once. You can do it at home as an assignment and progressively turn on the sections as you want the students to work through the assignment, or you can have it all available at the beginning. So again, that's a way in which we have, you know, the first genre-based was looking at a standard off-the-shelf 5-paragraph essay. And I, as the teacher, am simply saying, okay, I want you to write about clothing in ancient Rome, use the standard EssayJack 5-paragraph essay off the shelf. The second was, okay, I've gone through and I've created a localized template, one that has both English and Japanese to support your language learning. And I'm going to use that as progressive scaffolding, progressive templating, where we can turn on different sections as we go along. There are other, let's say I'm having my students work on an oral assignment, but there's a written component to the oral assignment. And so again, this is yet another kind of genre that can be supported by the software. So we can do a TED Talk like speech. So again, a TED Talk is quite long. That's sort of a 15-minute speech. Students might be doing something a little bit shorter than that, but the genre of a persuasive speech, a kind of speech that is set to inform and entertain, has the similar components to it. So again, we've got the component parts on the left. We've got the opening, which consists of an attention grabber, a build-up, some focus to the build-up, and then a twist. So we'll want to hook those listeners with a twist. And then you get into the main speech, whatever it is that you're going to be writing about, your main point, more details, and your closing. And so again, for this, we're having the students write, but it's so that they then have the written script for what might be delivered as an oral speech. So this is another kind of example of the smart templating that the students can use that can reinforce the lessons that are happening in your classroom. So I might say something, you won't believe what I'm about to say. So again, that's one of those attention grabbers, typical attention grabbers. Many of us will be used to, in digital marketing, we all get those email subject headers that are designed to get us to read the emails, or the clickbait in ads that will say, top 10 reasons to go to the beach. Number 2 will shock you, and oh, well, I must go click on that to find out what number 2 is. And so similarly, in our TED type speech, we may want to grab the attention of our audience. So you won't believe what I'm about to say about the beach. And then the next component is that we need the build up. So, all right, we've grabbed the attention of our audience. You won't believe what I'm going to say. And then again, we've got a different set of sentence starters. So you're noticing in all of these templates, we may have the same structure. So there are the chunks, there's the scaffolding, there's the tips, there's the sentence starters, but all of the guidance built into the platform is different from genre to genre, from template to template. And again, it's all customizable by you as well. So I would say, I would not have expected my life to change, but that one day on the beach saw me become a different person. Will never believe how it happened. So again, I'm creating that sense of narrative tension as I build it up. However, students themselves may not know the theory behind narrative tension, but we as the educators know all of these sorts of things. And so how do we operationalize it digitally? So we build in these tips and prompts. So they're merely answering the questions that the prompts are offering them. And as a result, they're building something that adheres to the expectations that English language listeners have of this type of speech. And so we don't necessarily have to overload them at the beginning with a bunch of theory and then show them how to integrate the theory into their writing in a blank Google page. We've sort of combined everything together so that they're learning the practice and the conventions of these genres while they write. And so that can be reinforced by us in the curricula that we may be using. So again, I might say, in particular, I was surprised by how the day unfolded. Let me tell you more. So again, it operates much the same way as the other templates that I was showing you. So as a student, I can see where I am at every point along the way as I write. At any point, I can send this off for review. So again, as an instructor, I may build into my teaching pedagogy periodic reviews. So perhaps once the student has finished the introductory paragraph, I might want it to be sent to me. So let's send it. In this case, I'll send it to myself. Otherwise, I could send it to a colleague in my class. I could send it to my entire class if I wanted everybody to have a look at it. So all of that optionality exists for me as a student to get feedback, so long as my instructor makes that part of the teaching experience using EssayJack. And as well, at any point, even if that feedback process happens outside the EssayJack platform, you as the instructor may say, okay, once you've written your introduction, export it to Google Docs if that's what you use, and I'll give you feedback, or download it or share it with me. There are all of those different possibilities for what happens once that initial draft has been tackled. And so, as I mentioned at the very beginning, So this is our dashboard. There are the components on the left, and there are student roles and educator roles. And so I've typically, aside from the customizing, the template's been showing you sort of what a student sees. And now we can see that I've got this little notification here as a student that that review has been sent to me. This is also what a teacher will see. So this is where the functionality exists that is the same for both a teacher or a student. If somebody shares something with them through the EssayJack platform, they'll see it. So this is that essay for the TED Talk speech, version 1. This is exactly what I just wrote here in real time that we're seeing. And now I have the opportunity to provide feedback on this. So we've got a built-in rubric. The first section of the rubric, so again, you've got overall and then all the way down. The first section, this overall rating, is a holistic rubric. So a holistic rubric is where the evaluation criteria combines everything together to give a kind of aggregate assessment. So overall, how did you do? Overall, did the writing, did everything mesh together to give a good expression of the requirements of the assignment? And so overall, I might say, okay, yes, this is a 4-star overall. And then I can add my custom comments. So whether I'm using this as a peer feedback or whether I'm an instructor, I can say, this is a good start to your TED Talk. Can't wait to see the finished version. Okay, so the student gets this little bit of a boost of feedback along the way from the instructor. And then the next components of the rubric break down the writing into its component parts, with the first component being its content. So that's its ideas. So content, the ideas, the thesis, the points, the details, are they significant? Is it fully explained? All of those sorts of things. And so I may at this point say, okay, great start about the beach. Can't wait for more details. The next section is organization. Perhaps this one I'd leave blank because I'm only looking at the first couple of sentences, so I don't know how the full organization is going to unfold yet. But style, I can certainly weigh in and start to say, that I like the suspense that the student is starting to build. So, and I can again add my custom comments. I like the suspense. And now, in addition to providing those kind of ratings based on the rubric, I can also provide very specific comments here. So I might say, start to fill in more detail sooner. So perhaps I'm saying the suspense is taking too long. Whatever it is that I might want to say. I may also identify there might be a verb tense problem or a language agreement problem. And again, I might flag that as a linguistic correction for the student to tackle and flag it for them. And then it's up for the student to make that correction. And so now let's say I've completed this review, the student is getting that back from me. So once again, from my dashboard, I have the ability to find and create essay drafts. I can also, in my essay drafts themselves, I can start to see, so again, this is the last one I worked on, my TED Talk speech. I can start to see any feedback that I've received along the way. So I can see this one here again, it's like a little red notification telling me that there's a comment. And so my comment says, start to fill in more details sooner. So again, it's happening in real time. There's no waiting. The student gets that feedback right in the moment of their writing in their interface. So again, I might change this in some manner and then mark that as resolved. Great. I saw your comment, teacher. That was a great comment. I fixed it. Wonderful. I can also see those ratings that have been provided. And so as I go through, I see this is a good start to your TED Talk. I can't wait to see the finished version. So again, I'm getting that interaction, that sort of formative feedback along the way from my instructor and starting to feel confident in my writing process. So again, we've got the different genres that are available, the different templates that are available. Those templates themselves are entirely customizable. Two key aspects of customizing templates that are worth calling out here that are important to note are the ability to customize templates and localize them, the ability to customize templates and use progressive templating. So, and then the third is just, you know, customizing those templates to your heart's content in order to make them more appropriate to the level that your students are functioning at. So again, in terms of the off-the-shelf templates, these ones are almost listed in order of difficulty, with the most difficult at the top. So the students who are higher level intermediate university students are the ones, and this is the one that is even used for our native English speakers, the academic essay. That's the most sophisticated and it's the most expansive. The persuasive speech similarly is fairly advanced. It's sort of thought of as a persuasive speech that can be given in an academic context. As we start to move down the book review, 5-paragraph essay, they start to become certainly at the level of language acquisition, still for kind of intermediate learners, not really basic learners, but they're starting, the language is a little bit more simple and the templates are a little bit more simple. The short advantages, disadvantages, agree, disagree, those are like your typical IELTS 250-word essay templates. And so while IELTS will have, you know, what are the advantages or disadvantages of X, you can say, make your own assignment. What are the short advantages, disadvantages of something? And it follows that fairly similar, fairly standard process. The narrative essay, and again, that it allows for the greatest level of creativity. So again, it's sort of lower down the list. It's a little bit more flexible. So we'll have a look at that one just so that you can see something that's different. We've looked at essays and speeches, but with a narrative, we're telling a story. So once again, the structure is the same. We've got the chunks in the middle with the guided prompts and sentence starters, tips on the right, the structure on the left. But for a narrative essay or a story, we now have the rising action, your hook, building tension, show, don't tell. Then you've got the action. So, and then there's within the action of narrative, there's a crisis, a conflict, a climax, the ending, or denouement, if you want to use the formal language. And so again, you know, the hook, choose something interesting to draw your reader into your story. How will you grab your reader's attention right away? And then there are tips. You might start with a clear visual image. Example, it was a dark and stormy night. You might start with a paradox. Example, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So these are using examples from literature, again, to remind students of this storytelling convention. So you might start with a conversation that has already started. So again, Moby Dick starts with this, call me Ishmael. So he's already starting to talk to us. There's not like, hi, my name is Ishmael. Again, just try one sentence that's so interesting that your reader will want to keep going. And again, we have sentence starters here that are in more narrative form. So he looked up to see what? You know, the sound of water was just like, air pushed her, feeling like no one knew that death sounded like. So again, what we're seeing is we've got all of those sentences. So light and sound and seeing and hearing and all of those sorts of sensory type words that are key to narrative. And so I just wanted to flag that one for you before we get into some of the question and answer so that you get a real flavor for some of the different kinds of templates that you can use to teach different kinds of writing. So there's the, you know, the standard academic essay, there's speeches, there's narrative essays, and then the way in which you teach it has the flexibility for you. So as an instructor, you can customize things, you can use progressive templating, you can use native language to have context switching for students. So you have all of that flexibility built in. And again, as I mentioned, you know, on the from the dashboard, you have all of the components available to you as an instructor as well. You can add additional resources to any of your courses. So for instance, if you have been teaching for 25 years and you have a whole roster of PDF files that you've built up over time that you love, you can add those here as well. If there are links to other digital resources that your university or your department are using, you can add those links here and students will have it all in one place. And so again, you get that optimization. And then typically from an organizational perspective, if you just want to use EssayJack off the shelf and you don't want to customize anything entirely, you don't even have to create courses. Students can get their account and they can use EssayJack, and you can just sort of tell them, okay, I want you to go and write an essay on your weekend, use one of the EssayJack templates, and they're off to the races. If you want to be a little bit more involved, then you set up a course. So you would, create your own course. I have some pre-created here. So you create your course, and then you can create assignments within that course. And any assignment that I create within that course will be shared to my particular students. And so when my particular students go to create a draft, they'll see any assignments that I've shared with them from any particular course. As well, once I create and publish that assignment, so this assignment is still in draft form, this one is published. Once I publish it, an essay draft will be created on each student's account so that they can get started and they don't even have to go through this create essay draft and then find the assignment. They simply have the essay draft. It'll be blank, of course, but it'll be waiting there for them to fill it in. And so that's, again, how you can potentially use EssayJack in your classroom. I will, at this point, stop and I will just check to see if we've got questions coming up in the chat. I'll keep my screen share open just so that if I want to jump in and kind of point things out a little bit, I can. Yes, okay. So the only question is just, how do I get access? And Ayuna has made that access available, which is great. Are there any other questions? Can I show a published student essay? So yes, let's find one that looks a little bit more complete. Let me find one that has lots of words in it so you can see one. All right, this Macbeth essay. And let's just download this to see what it's going to look like. Oh, there we go. Of course, I don't have Microsoft Word on my computer, so that foils me. Let's see. Have to open it in Pages. There we go. Let's try to make this a little bit bigger. Zoom in. So I've got my essay. Here's the title, the structure, and it starts to break things down into paragraphs. And then there are sources added at the bottom, which reminds me actually, which I didn't show you, that there is the ability to add citations. So let's say I want to add a citation to a book. What is Macbeth about is maybe the name of the book, and it's by me. This is all fictional. It's by University of Lindy Press. Don't go looking up this book. It doesn't exist in the town of Lindytown. And it was published this year. And let's say I quoted from page 34. So now I'll have this citation that's added to the bottom of my essay here, this citations. And it's formatted in a fairly basic way. So it's listed as endnotes at the bottom of the page. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm frozen. It looks like I'm frozen. Hopefully you can still hear and see my screen. Okay, good. Thank you, Julian. I was going to say my picture isn't moving, but so long as you can hear and see my screen, then that works for me. And I'll see if there are other questions in the chat. So So hopefully that's what you were looking for, Mark, in terms of a published student essay. A downloaded student essay is what it looks like as any kind of a document in Word or Google, or as in my case on my new MacBook on Pages, which is kind of fun because this is a real live test since I haven't actually used Pages on my new computer before. And so glad to know that it works with EssayJack. Other questions that anyone may have before we bring things to a bit of a conclusion?
Yeah, I have one more question.
Yeah, please.
So the three academic writing classes I have, they use their own LMS.
Mm-hmm.
So if they went to EssayJack and wrote it there, then they, in the final stage, they would need to bring it into Microsoft Teams or whatever the thing uses. So when it's downloaded, are any of the teacher comments saved as well?
No, so that's a really good question. So, and it's kind of a two-part question, which I'll ask or which I'll answer. So the first is EssayJack is LTI compliant. So you can have an account where it's linked and connected right into the learning management system. So like Blackboard, Canvas, and in which case the integration is one where the student just from their LMS, they would click and they would automatically be logged into EssayJack and scoped into the right course, and all of that rostering is taken care of. If, however, but to your point at the end, once they download and share or anything like that with the document, those comments from the teacher or the instructor only live within the EssayJack platform. They don't get exported out to the learning management system. And related to that is that marking, so final marking and assessing and gradebook and all of that happens outside of the EssayJack platform.
Thanks. And so is there any stage within EssayJack where I can print out my comments or suggestions? Is that possible?
Yes. So
okay.
from the reviews, you have opportunities to, let's see, where's my list of reviews? So I can then download and archive and delete and print out those copies that will have the comments from the instructors. It's not the greatest interface, to be honest. Once you do that, here's the print that I was looking for. So it's not, it doesn't look all that nice, but those the comments can be retained.
Okay, yeah, because I have hybrid classes, so I'm in the classroom, but I'm also online. So I find it, and I don't have a screen to show. I'm in a classroom which doesn't have a screen where the student, I can show something on the screen.
Right,
So
yes.
It's useful for me to have a paper hard copy of what I wrote and then go through it with them.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And yeah, I mean, that is a particularly challenging classroom context. So I feel for you, Mark, because that doesn't sound easy to basically have some students who are online, but yet you don't have a screen, so that it'll look a little bit different to everybody. But yeah, you can definitely make your notes and then do the lesson sort of based off of your notes, and then the students themselves can see that reinforced on EssayJack.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so I will go to my one final slide just to remind you again of how to be in contact with Ayuna and Julian and the Mangosteams team on the ground. Certainly you can be in touch with us on social. And one of the things that Julian said that I should make sure to mention at the end of each of these presentations is that teachers should tell 10 teachers. So teachers tell 10 teachers about EssayJack, because again, as we grow our presence in Japan, it is also good. It's always word of mouth from people who are the first ones to try it, and then the first ones lead to the second, to the third, to the 10th. and then more and more people are able to use it if it's something that's going to be helpful for them in the class. So tell 10 teachers about EssayJack if it is something that you want to give a try. And on that, I will, from my official part, I will bring things to a close. And I thank you so much for your attention, and thank you for providing me the opportunity to walk through a bit of a workshop, but also to tell you some of the pedagogy and some of the research that kind of underpins the software and what went into building it. So that's it for me then. Anything else? All right, I think on that note, I can